What's going on, Washington fans? Welcome to the stream. I am Josh Taylor, and we are still talking about free agency as it is quickly approaching. We've already heard a lot of news with players on the trade block and stuff like that. So last week, I actually did a 5 targets on the defensive side of the ball for free agency that I'm really looking at for the Washington Commanders. And when I'm doing this, I'm really doing just a realistic, like, I'm not going to go through here today and be like, oh, we're going to get T. Higgins, we're going to get Trey Smith, we're going to get Chris Gott. Like, that's not at all what you should expect from the stream. I do a lot of, work and really breaking this down and looking at realistic possibilities and just setting up the expectation for what free agency should really look like. And we've also heard from Adam Peters at the Combine, and he said, we are going to be active in free agency, but we do have a lot of free agents. So, a lot of that is bringing back our own guys, but then also like finding people that fit. And so that's what I really did is took a look at the chart and these rankings that I pulled up on PFF, and I'll show you here in a second, and just give you my top 5, not like my wish list or anything like that. But once again, just realistic options on the offensive side of the ball that Washington could really just hone in and has a real chance of signing in free agency. So let me go ahead and pull this up real quick and share the screen, and we'll take a look at it together. And of course, like I have to start off by talking about T. Higgins. And he's not one of my 5 for the simple fact of that, like, even with his little emoji gate last night when he tweeted out the cap or whatever, I don't see Cincinnati letting this man leave. And, we've already heard they haven't officially done it, it sounds like. But, they still have some time. I want to say March 4th is the deadline for that franchise tag. So they have some time to, use that. Now, they do want to get a long-term contract done, but they have to sign him. They have to make Jamar Chase one of the highest paid players in the league. They have to pay Trey Hendrickson. So, I get it. It's going to be really hard to do. So, unfortunately, I think T. Higgins is going to get hit with that franchise tag once again. So, I don't think he's going to be, tested out in free agency. I don't see them letting him even test the market, to be honest with you. So, that's why I don't have him there. And same thing with Trey Smith in a little different aspect. Trey Smith is, really good right guard. He's going to be demanding about $21.5 million per year. Might be a little bit more than that. Who knows? But even with Sam Cosmi having his knee injury, he just got paid. Like, you invested a lot of money in Sam Cosmi. So he is your right guard of the future. Now, do you still need someone maybe for next year? Possibly. Maybe for, half the year, majority of the year. They said he's already at the facility, rehabbing to come back. But how long will it take for him to get back on the field and back to, game shape? I would be really surprised if Sam Cosmi started the season. But realistically, Washington's not going to go sign Trey Smith to a 4-year, $86 million deal and have him play right guard for half the season or whatever it's going to be, and then say, oh, we're just going to move him out to left guard and, somewhere he hasn't played before and just, make him go out there. That's not how this works, guys. So don't expect Trey Smith to be somebody that's on the radar for Washington. And Chris Godwin's not on my list simply for the fact of I don't see him leaving Tampa. For everything I've heard and seen, Chris Godwin's not leaving Tampa. They are going to keep him there. They have been working on a contract, and I think he stays in Tampa Bay. I don't see it happening. Of course, I was tempted to mention my guy, Amari Cooper, but I don't think he's on the list. But my first target that I think is a realistic possibility is Ronnie Stanley. And I'll talk about why. So they have him projected at a 2-year, $40 million total with 27.5 guaranteed. So average is about $20 million average per year. Now, Ronnie Stanley, he's going to be 31 here soon. Not worried about it. He played, probably one of his best seasons last year. And he could be the guy that comes in at left tackle. It is an option. And I want to talk y'all through, especially the offensive line, the thought process with it. I already talked about Sam Cosmi a little bit. Let's go over to the other side. But real quick, it says it's hard to argue that any player improved their free agency stock more this season than the Ravens left tackle. After a devastating ankle injury in 2021 seemed to stall his career, Ronnie Stanley was back to top form in 2024, posting an impressive 79.6 PFF pass blocking grade through the first 12 weeks. So the thing with Ronnie Stanley, and I'm going to pull him up a little bit more and get to a little bit more detailed on Ronnie Stanley. The reason something like this would make sense, 6'6", 315, has the mold, has everything you're looking for. Once again, really good, 71 overall grade, 39th in the NFL. Pass blocking grade was 21st. Run blocking grade, obviously wouldn't that be a little bit better, but still, it's still up there from what you would want. Only allowed 2 sacks, had 13 penalties. You want that to come down a little bit as well. But still, only 4 hits, 2 sacks, 35 total pressures. Pressures happen. It is what it is. But played 1,062 snaps last season at left tackle. 514 run blocking snaps played, which was second in the league. He played the 9th most offensive snaps at left tackle last year. So it's not like this is like, oh, he has really good grades. It's a small sample size. He was out there a ton. 1,062 snaps. That's a good bit. But the thing about Ronnie Stanley that I like is it gives you the possibility, like thinking about improving the offensive line, you have to do so where you can. If you can improve, that's left tackle, left guard, right tackle. Like I said, you might have to plug somebody in right guard for a little bit. But for the most part, it's what can you do? So if you have the opportunity to upgrade at left tackle with Ronnie Stanley, it allows you to move Brandon Coleman inside to left guard. And Adam Peters, we heard him talk about Brandon Coleman at the end of the season. We heard, Dan Quinn talk about Brandon Coleman at the end of the season. But then he was also mentioned about, or he was asked about Brandon Coleman at the combine. He said, hey, he did a really good job going in there and competing at a whole season at left tackle. Like, we thought he did, a really good job. And I don't think he was as bad as, fans really thought. But for a third round guy coming in like he did, at first, the beginning of the season, he was kind of rotating in with Cornelius Lucas. They were like, easing him in there. They didn't just throw him out to the Wolves and say, hey, Brandon Coleman, good luck against all these really good pass rushers. But then it got to the point where, like, okay, he's done enough to show us he can start at left tackle. And if he is a left tackle next year, then so be it. That's what they decide to do. But it's all about, can you upgrade? So can you upgrade with Ronnie Stanley and make him the starter, 2-year contract, put him out there and you can kick Brandon Coleman inside? Yes, that is a possibility. I think Coleman at left guard has the, higher upside than what you would get out of Nick Allegretti. No offense to Nick Allegretti, but if you can get better, you better do it. You have to do it. Maybe Allegretti fills in at right guard for Cosme until he comes back. Whatever they decide to do. But for the sake of Ronnie Stanley, he can play left tackle and Coleman can go to left guard. So that's why he's on my target list, because that's a move that makes sense. So I just want y'all to get that. Like, the reason why I didn't say, hey guys, go get Trey Smith. Figure it out. Throw him on the left side. We're going to just plug dudes in and pay him, $86 million contract. We're just going to plug and play. Like, that's not how they build the roster. That's not how Washington really would approach it, to be honest with you. I would be shocked if they would even attempt to sign Trey Smith. I mean, it just honestly wouldn't make sense. And I think Cosme will be fine when he comes back. For me, it's more so like when. It's not the, what's he going to look like. I think he'll be fine. It's more about when. How long is it going to take for him to come back? But Ronnie Stanley is target number 1 for me. I think if you can upgrade at that left tackle spot, you do it, and then possibly move Brandon Coleman at left guard. Or maybe they go in the draft and do the same thing. Go get Josh Connolly Jr. or Ariante Ursary or whoever at left tackle, move Brandon Coleman to left guard, or maybe they do vice versa. They draft a really good left guard that they feel, or a right tackle, and they decide to keep Coleman, or maybe they sign Ron. How about this? They sign Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, move Coleman in at left guard, and they draft a right tackle. And that's your offensive line. And then we got to figure out right guard. Maybe Wiley moves into right guard. I don't know if they would release Wiley. We've already heard about John Allen's contract, possibly getting released. But for Wiley, like the depth chart, I mean, I just want to show y'all. just so it makes sense. You can look past all these ads. It just doesn't, Tyler Biotish, Dieter, gone. Really bad. Really, really bad. Cornelius Lucas, he's a free agent. You got to get him back for sure. Um, and then, like I said, you have Coleman, Allegretti, Chris Paul behind Allegretti. Don't feel good about that at all. Trent Scott, like he filled in really good at right guard. So maybe that's what they decided to do. Let him train in the offseason at right guard because he's played right tackle before. Like I think he's a solid depth guy. I was really surprised at how good he looked actually. So maybe Trent Scott is the guy that fills in at right guard until Cosby comes back. But nonetheless, you need depth at guard. And you need to figure out the tackle situation because Andrew Wiley is the only right tackle we have. And people are saying, hey, Josh, they need to cut Andrew Wiley. Okay, you do that, you have 0 right tackles unless you're counting Trent Scott as your right tackle on your roster or Cornelius Lucas. But then, like, you're pulling away from left tackle. So the tackle spot has to get figured out, whether it's Brandon Coleman, whether it's Ronnie Stanley, whether it's somebody in the draft. They have to figure out the offensive line. And Sam Cosby getting hurt just threw a big wrench in it, to be honest with you. But I think he'll bounce back fine. All right, next up, I'm not going Stephon Diggs. I'm not going, and once again, I'm not going with any of these big guards that are going to start, at right guard or even like a Tevin Jenkins or somebody that's going to be asking for a big contract. Matter of fact, my next one is a wide receiver, Darius Slayton, someone that you've heard, a good bit on social media. If you follow things on Twitter. Darius Slayton is a guy that's come up over and over and over again. He's just turned 28. PFF has him as the 39th free agent available, which, I like that. I think the respect is there, and I appreciate that ranking. The projected contract is a 3-year, 37.5 total with 25 guaranteed, so it goes to about 12.5 mil average per year. I think that first year, and I think you'll see a couple of these 1-year deals, like if we get Zach Ertz back, if we get Bobby Wagner back, which I could see happening. But I think you're going to see a lot of 3-year deals, kind of like what they did with Dorrance Armstrong. I think Eckler was a 3-year deal. Tyler Biotish, where those first years are very favorable, very affordable. Like say Darius Slayton's first year cap hit is like 7-8 mil. That's nothing. That is nothing. And then second year goes up, third year goes up even more. But you usually have an out after that second season to where you can cut them and, whatever you want to do with them, you save your money, whatever. But for the sake of it, you're probably getting Darius Slayton for 7-8 mil on that first year. And this is a guy that produces a lot. He's a steady producer with really bad quarterback play. So down here, PFF put shaky quarterback and offensive line play arguably limited Slayton's production during his time with the Giants, which is unfortunate for a player who is a threat to break off an explosive play at any moment. The former 5th-round steal nonetheless had 4 seasons of at least 700 receiving yards on 15 yards per reception, which is big, over his first 5 years in the league, which is harder to do with a quarterback that has little time to wait for longer developing routes downfield. Slayton is also the Giants' 2024 Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee, showing he'd be an asset to any locker room. So think about that. Think about the locker room Adam Peters and Dan Quinn love to build. Think about the personality. These are the things you have to just think about. I know so many people just say, oh, Josh, we're going to go get Stephon Diggs. We're going to go get every top option. That's not the case. And I hate to break it to you, but I want to go ahead and set expectations for free agency. But a guy like Darius Slayton is exactly what they're looking for. Does Darius Slayton stop you from drafting a wide receiver? No. In my opinion, it doesn't stop you from signing Debo. You can fix this wide receiver room for a very favorable amount of money. Or if they decide to trade for Debo, which I think is on the table for reasons I know, it doesn't like you can fix this wide receiver room for like not much. For as much salary cap as we have, third most in the NFL, You have plenty of money. If you're spending 7-8 mil in the first year for Darius Slayton, heck, I'll even say 9 mil, like as the ceiling. That's fine. And he was the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the Giants. So he fits exactly. And I'm not just saying that makes him a fantastic guy, but that speaks a lot for his character. This is a highly respected player for the Giants. And that's what they would want. This is the kind of player they would want. 6'1", 194. Like I say, just turned 28. Let's take a look at the production numbers with terrible quarterback play. Let me go into premium stats real quick. We can take a look at it a little bit more. I'll zoom in for y'all. So last season, 39 catches. This is with Malik Neighbors putting up crazy numbers. 39 catches. He had a little bit of a drop problem, but still 573 yards, 14.7 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns with a rotating quarterback, carousel of the worst in the NFL, bad offensive line. And like I said, Malik Neighbors was producing because Malik Neighbors, but still 50 catches the year before that, 770 yards, 15.4 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns. 2022, still bad quarterback play, 46 catches, 724 yards, 15.7, 2 touchdowns. I mean, skip 2021. He only had 26 catches. I think he was hurt that season. But like 2020, 751. This guy, if I can get, I'm not saying he's going to score 8 touchdowns for us. But like, let's just say this stat line in 2023. If I can get a solid 770 to 800 receiving yards, and I'll say 4 or 5 touchdowns out of Darius Slayton, I'm taking that all day long. I'm fine with that contract. I am perfectly fine with that contract. I think that's great. I did want to see how they used him. Let me go back to premium stats real quick to see where they lined him up at. So out wide, 692 snaps. And then in the slot, 163. So this is a guy that can play outside. So you can put Debo in the slot. You can draft, a slot guy. If Luther Burton falls to you or Emeka Egbuka falls to you, that's your slot guy right there. But he doesn't play in the backfield, nothing like that. Oh, he did 4 punt return snaps, whatever. But you can put this guy on the outside. I think this is a very affordable and, in my opinion, reliable, because even with bad quarterback play, give him good quarterback play. Heck, what if he passed 1,000 yards next season? Jaden Daniels would be the best quarterback he's had his whole career. So imagine, what if he gets 900 yards, 1,000 yards? Let's say 6, 7, 8 touchdowns for that kind of contract. It's definitely enticing. And I think he would be an option for Washington there. So he is my number 2 option there. And I mean, a 3-year deal, once again, that's perfect for his age and everything. I'm all for it. Now, those are like the splashy, in my opinion, signings. But now it's time to think about some depth guys, but then also I just think realistic possibilities. So I mentioned the offensive line, and there's a couple different ones that I was looking at, especially on the offensive line, like Aaron Banks, right guard once again, has that connection. San Francisco, Patrick McCarry was a guy I was looking at. Sheriff, obviously, if he's a 1-year stopgap there at right guard. But I didn't go that route. I went with Will Hernandez. And the reason why I went with Will Hernandez is I know he had an injury last year. I get it. He's 29 years old. He would be very affordable. He would, like I said, he could fill in at right guard need be, but he would be a really good depth option, in my opinion, as well. I don't think he's a bad offensive lineman at all. 2-year projected, 4.75 mil per year contract. So it's 9.5 total, 3 mil guaranteed. That is chump change for the money that we're working with. Hernandez seemed to have found a great fit for his skill set in the Arizona Cardinals offense, but unfortunately suffered a season-ending knee injury in week 5 of his contract year after another solid start to his 3rd campaign with the club. Hopefully the silver lining for Hernandez is that he was hurt early enough in the year that he can be well into his recovery before free agency begins. The former second round pick offers a high floor as a pass protector on the interior. So that's what I'm really looking at. And the one thing that stands out to me about Will Hernandez is, 6'2", 332. He's a big dude. I feel like he can move well in space, which is what Washington really likes to do with their guards. They like to pull. Saw that a good bit with Cosme and Allegretti. But, I mean, even in like I said, this was last year, and I'll show you the year before that as well. Only played 280 snaps last year before he got hurt, but he only had 2 penalties. He allowed no sacks, no hits, and 8 total pressures in the season. And then if I change this to 2023, where he played 1,100 right guard snaps, so he played a ton, had 1 penalty all season, fantastic. Allowed 4 sacks, not amazing, but I'll still take it. 6 hits allowed, one which is 114th in the league. That's not that bad. I mean, for 1,100 snaps, like, I'm taking that. And the total pressures allowed 29. It's a little up there, but whatever. But still, I think this is a guy I really liked coming out of college. But from what I've seen from Will Hernandez, like I said, we need that depth anyways. We have to have that depth. And then you need a plan at right guard to start the season. So I think Will Hernandez is one of those guys, once again, fits what they're looking for. It makes sense. Like, if, something happens to Allegretti, or if Cosme doesn't come back in time, you can plug him in. He's a fix for right now. He's 29 years old. He's not that old. I could have gone like Zeitler or someone like that, but I feel like they would have wanted to start the season. But then you do have options with, like I said, Wiley moving in or Coleman moving inside, whatever. But in my opinion, it's a pretty safe bet, and the reward is there. Like, if we need to use him, cool, he's good enough. But if not, and he's just like a depth guy or whatever, you got him for, $4.75 million per year. That's fine with me. We need that depth. Like I said, on the offensive line, Trent Scott, I think he'd filled in good at right guard, but I think he still should be listed at right tackle depth here. And Will Hernandez could plug right here at right guard, and that's your fix. And then Trent Scott is at right tackle, and need be, Trent Scott would go to right guard if he has to. Once again, I don't, necessarily prefer that, but you got to build the offensive line. And I'm not just talking about starters. I'm talking about depth as well, because you got guys hurt, and people get hurt throughout the season, and he's definitely going to be ready before the season starts. I mean, they're talking about him being healthy like right now. So in my opinion, I think Will Hernandez makes sense. I'm not looking at the big contract guys. I'm looking at guys they can really build the roster with, and at depth and starter with a guy like Ronnie Stanley, but then also Will Hernandez. So that's what I got so far. Ronnie Stanley, Darius Slayton, and Will Hernandez as realistic possibilities. Then I'm going to go to another wide receiver, Joshua Palmer. This is a guy that intrigues me. 25 years old, so he's still young. And he's projected a 2-year, $13 million total, so about 6.5 per year, and about 7.25 guaranteed. And I'm not saying this guy would be, wide receiver 2, but once again, we only have 2 wide receivers to the active roster under contract with Terry and Luke McCaffrey. And of course, you're probably going to re-sign 2 of your guys, maybe 3, depends who you want to get. But just think about it. So say we have Terry, you have Luke McCaffrey, say you draft Trey Harris to be like your wide receiver 2. Josh Palmer, in my opinion, would be a really good, backup outside guy. And there was a lot of wide receivers that got snaps last year. Between Noah Brown, obviously Terry got his, but Noah Brown, De'Ami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, Jamison Crowder was getting reps. This is an offense that uses a lot of wide receivers and gives guys opportunities. Obviously, Noah Brown getting hurt kind of opened the door more for De'Ami later in the season. But Joshua Palmer, in my opinion, he has a couple jobs here and there. But I think this is a guy who could be a really solid depth piece when you're thinking about, okay, Terry could start wide receiver one. Say they go get Debo and they put Debo in the slot, or they move him around or whatever, and say they draft Trey Harris or Jaden Higgins or someone that's going to be like a dominant outside guy. This could be your wide receiver four. And at that contract, I'm fine with that. 6.5 per year, 2-year deal. Start him on the outside. Maybe he's your replacement for Noah Brown, or he's like your De'Ami Brown. I'm not saying they play the same, but just thinking about depth chart wise of where it could make sense. So it'd be like Terry. Let's just say Debo. Let's just say they put him in the slot, whatever, or Christian Kirk, whoever it is. I don't care. And then you have Trey Harris, or you have Jaden Higgins, or you go get Cooper Kupp. In my opinion, there's no reason Joshua Palmer couldn't be right here as your backup that rotates in, whether it's, like I said, Noah Brown's replacement or Jamison Crowder or De'Ami. I don't know what De'Ami's going to do. Maybe De'Ami decides to test free agency and see what his market's like. But let's take a look at the production. Let's see. 2024, and the touchdowns aren't necessarily there. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. But 2024, 584 yards, 1 touchdown. Didn't have a lot of drops, actually. I thought he would have more drops than what I saw. 4 drops, 3 drops, 4 drops, 1 drop. Not bad. I can live with that. 584 yards, 1 touchdown, 581 yards, 2 touchdowns, 15 yards per catch, 15.3 yards per catch. 2022, he had 769, 3 touchdowns. Obviously, they had Ladd McConkey. They needed a little bit more. They tried to get Quentin Johnston out there. Wasn't really working out too much, but he was still like the third guy. 584. So you're in that 580 range. If you're getting me a couple touchdowns, whatever. If you're getting that out of your wide receiver 4, I'm taking that all day long. He's a younger guy, 6'2", 210, has a body size. I like it. I've seen him make some really impressive catches. So, in my opinion, that's a guy worth checking in on. If you're losing some of those depth guys, if you're losing Noah Brown, if you're losing De'Ami Brown, or you're losing Olamide Zaccheaus, whatever, you need someone to replace him. And Josh Palmer was my number 4 target for that reason. And then last but not least, a guy who's going under the radar a lot, Nick Westbrook-Akine. And this is a guy that was on a touchdown tear last season. He even scored on us. About to be 28 years old, but just really impressed me with how good he's played with really bad quarterback play. But this is a guy, he was just scoring all the time. Projected super, super cheap deal. Like I said, put him, on the depth chart, whatever it is, fill out that depth. 2 years, $7 million guaranteed, or $7 million total, $4 million guaranteed. I'm taking that all day long. But just look what this guy did last year. First off, he's got speed, 6'2", 211. He's got the size as well. But look at this. Last year, only 3 drops, 9 receiving touchdowns, 497 yards, which is kind of weird on 9 touchdowns. But he can score. The dude can score. There was a stretch of I think it was 7-8 games in a row, he was just scoring touchdowns. And that alone is enough to be on my list. Well, let's look and see what he did the years before that. He pretty much, he had a pretty good breakout last year, especially scoring. But that's what impresses me. The yards per catch, 15.5. Once again, Will Levis is your quarterback. You're not doing so much. Tennessee hasn't had a quarterback in a while since Ryan Tannehill, who was still mid. But 497 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. It looks like he can block. At least he was the last 2 seasons as well. He's got the body size to be able to do so. 19 total touchdowns. Most of them come this past season. He's getting better. And like I said, he's not that old. He's not that old. About to be 28. I'm fine with that. Build the depth in the wide receiver room and give Jaden as many weapons as possible. That's what this should be about. And when you're thinking about free agency, most of the difference makers are going to be on the defense. Most of the money, the big contracts, the big splashes is going to be on the defense. And I've already made that video and I put it up, so check it out on my YouTube channel. But I still think they make some signings and make some splashes in the offense that makes sense. So I had Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, Darius Slayton wide receiver, Will Hernandez as guard, as depth guy, Nick Westbrook at Kine, and then also went with Joshua Palmer, who I think is an underrated wide receiver signing that could, be a legit wide receiver 4 weapon for you. So let me know what y'all think. Like I said, I didn't want to come on here and be like, guys, guess what? We're gonna shock the world. We're gonna sign T. Higgins. We're gonna get Trey Smith. We're gonna get Chris Godwin. We're gonna sign Amari Cooper. Guys, that is not what your expectation should be for free agency. Just letting you know. They are going to re-sign a good bit of their guys that they had on the team last year, but they're still going to make some signings. So this is my honest 5 targets that I think have a good chance of signing with Washington. Some of these under the radar guys, but then also they could make a splash with Darius Slayton or Ronnie Stanley if they decide to do so. But guys, keep your eyes open. We have a lot going on with Jonathan Allen and stuff. So obviously, if anything happens, just follow me on social media and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I'll definitely hop on here with some breaking news if something crazy happens as well. So I appreciate everyone checking it out, and I'll catch y'all next time here on Bleacher Report. Peace.